Thank you, everybody, for joining the call here. My name is Jake Anderley. I'm from YieldMaster Solutions, agronomy lead. So I live in Ellsworth, Wisconsin. I work also on the Legend side as a sales agronomist. Okay, so kind of this is our core values at YieldMaster Solutions. So the product we're going to talk about today is called TS601, and this product falls right in line with all of these. So we're a company that's about integrity, proven solutions, innovative, and ROI. So we're not looking at products that are just, good for YieldMaster. We're not looking at products that are just, that are those products that are just going to be that one-hit wonder that only have, a one-sided aspect to their performance. So it's kind of a whole systems approach, if you will, when we bring things in. The biggest thing to me on this slide that I really like is the ROI commitment. The product we're going to talk about today, I did a lot of testing with this year. We'll talk a little bit about the trials. And it's one that on the ROI that is on the consistency of performance that really sticks out to me. Sorry. So starting off, kind of going in to the products we've been selecting here, and kind of we're going into this kind of a full season or a systems approach to the products we bring in and why we bring them in. So the first part, or I guess the first part of the season, we're looking at, priming the plants, getting them ready for things like stresses, whether it be abiotic or biotic stresses throughout the year. That's kind of the first part of our portfolio, and there's a lot of products that fall into that category. The second would be the nourishing side. So, providing targeted nutrition. Those are some of the products that we brought out this year that are in the portfolio and kind of helping fill out that framework of that plant that we've maybe established with other products right away throughout the season, or just maybe those kind of yield added type products. And then on the backside, the enhancing. So just, enhancing the overall performance of that crop through different bacteria. So it's not just a one-sided approach with this portfolio. It's kind of that full season. We're not looking at it as, hey, our products are only working in that early season and that's it. It's kind of that season-long approach where we have a product at any time we're making an application for that crop that's going to work. So devoted to integrity. So this is kind of a map of our proof of concept trials. So what those are, so we just talked about, that we were talking about the, enhancing the crop through priming, all that stuff. So, how do we bring these products to market? So I've been involved with these since 2018 when we first started YieldMaster Solutions. So these trials, so every state that's in green there has had one of these trials. So we're not just bringing products out on a whim of, hey, product XYZ, we think it works. Let's just try and bring it out and try to sell a whole bunch of product. That's not our approach at all. So it's got to have an ROI to the customer, and it also has to have at least a 75% essentially positive response rate to bring into the portfolio. We're not looking at products that are 50%, 55, 60. Granted, we might have tested those products, but those products don't make the product guide. It's really with anything, especially in ag, especially this year with how margins are, we need to have products that are performing at that high level. Otherwise it doesn't, we can have a 50% win rate with an 8-to-1 ROI, but at the end of the day on the customer side and out in the field, those are products that don't perform. So when we bring a product forward, we make sure that it's been rigorously tested across multiple yield environments, multiple states, multiple geographies. So we get a big picture rather than just looking at one small data set that we're bringing out. So these are the products, and I won't steal the thunder of Anne here for later, but so these are the products that we're offering through NewLeaf Symbiotics. So these are products that are private labeled through YieldMaster Solutions. So we have the Rise on the bottom there. We have the RisaStack Repel. We've had that out now. That was formerly known as the Terrasim 450 plus the TS201. And then there's a product that's going to be, we're adding to that label, or not that label, excuse me, but kind of to that portfolio of biocontrols as the TS601. And we'll talk about that here in a minute. And then on the top there, we have just our RisaStack Straight. We have that product for corn and beans. and then which would be both of those products on the top. So that portfolio hasn't changed. This is kind of an add-on. So Rhizostack moving forward is going to be essentially the private labeled versions of the Terrasim 450 or 401, depending on what crop we're looking at. And then that's kind of really going to be the framework for a lot of the products moving forward. So we have the Repel is call it kind of the bolt-on for the rootworm control. That was the 201. And then the product we're going to talk about today, which is TS601, currently is a standalone for seed treatment on soybeans. There may be different applications in the future, but as of today, it's going to be just seed coat applied for soybeans is what we have approved. So this is going to be the new product. We've kind of hinted at it. I talked about a little bit here. So TS601, some of you guys may have had these in trials I had some whole field trials sprinkled out throughout the state of Wisconsin. We had them in Minnesota. So this is a product that we were getting, hyped up on all year. We're kind of teasing it out there as being a biofungicide, and that's exactly what it is. And being honest, like I said, I'm involved in a lot of the proof of concept trials. On the Legend side, I do a lot of our knowledge plots, which are kind of fall into that same category. And when I test stuff on those proof of concept trials, I'm not artificially trying to get the products to work so I have a good data set. To be honest, I'm trying to break products. I'm trying to put them in a scenario where if the product is going to fail or show its Achilles heel, I'm going to see that show up to kind of put my mind as, okay, this product doesn't work. And I'm not trying to prove things wrong, but I want to make sure that when I put it into a heavy pressure environment, so for instance, with the TS601, a lot of my trial work, I put it into heavy white mold, SDS, and Phytophthora environments. And this product shined through big. This year we had a lot of issues in my part. I'm from Wisconsin. We had a lot of white mold. We had a lot of sudden death. We had a lot of actually anthracnose, which is not on the label, but there was a lot of disease in soybeans that took a lot of top end off. And we'll talk about kind of on the technical side. I'll let Chris and Ann kind of take that over. But essentially it's working season long with the plant. So there's a lot of products on the market today on the chem side, which is straight fungicides that are working on white mold or working on, seed coats for Phytophthora. You have things like Cruiser and, those type, or not Cruiser, but Cruiser Max with Vibrance, those kind of hard chemistry fungicides. This is working a little bit different. So this is going in, colonizing within the plant and essentially ramping the plant up to prepare itself for disease infection, so it has a faster response time. So if you look at the bottom there, and this is the big one for me. So it's EPA registered and the big thing here on the call will be soybeans. So damping off, which is Pythium. Pythium wasn't as big of a deal in 25 as it was in 2024, but still definitely rose to be a challenge. And that's a disease that slowly over the last couple of years has kind of been creeping up on the industry. White mold is the big one. So sclerotinia white mold, any root and stem rot. So like your Phytophoras, your stem cankers, those kind of diseases, and then also sudden death. So same thing on the cotton and peanut side, similar diseases there. Pick up fusarium on the cotton and peanut side. So here's some trial data. So this is out of the proof of concept trials. And like I said, this is multiple yield environments, multiple areas. So side by side consistently. So, and no biological product. That's the one thing at YieldMasters, we recognize that there is not a biological out there that will win 100% of the time. Anything in agriculture is not 100%. You could have that scenario where you go out and put nitrogen over the top of corn, and for whatever given year, whatever environment, say we ran into a record drought and we got none of that nitrogen in that plant, that didn't have our ROI. Okay, so there's nothing that's 100%. So being that we say that it's 100% win rate, I realize that somewhere there's going to be a scenario out there where we don't have a response with TS601. It's coming, but so when you see that data set, don't think that we're trying to pull the wool over your eyes of that everything's 100%. But so 6 different trials, and I've still got a few trials on the beans yet to get in. Just got to pull off guys yield maps from this year. But we averaged 3.6 bushel on average. Having 100% win rate was pretty good. And the thing is that consistency of performance, I didn't see a 15 bushel and then a -2 and then a 3 and then another 20. It was that consistent 2 to 5 bushel, across the board is kind of what we saw. And there's trials in here where guys, we had fungicides over the top in addition to this, without. So there's a lot of different variables, and to have that consistent performance time and time again was something that I really like to see. And it's not all in just white mold environments or just phytophthora environments. This is taking a lot of different disease pressures and sometimes stacked disease pressures where maybe we had SDS and white mold in the same field show up. That's all lumped into this data set. And with that, I'm going to let Anne Phillips from NewLeaf take it from here and kind of explain the power behind the TS601.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jake. I appreciate you and everyone else in YMS allowing me to be here today to talk about TS601. This was a great introduction, and I just want to say we really appreciate having partners like YMS that allow us to test out, or we'll test out our products in a real world situation to see how well they perform for the grower for the real world condition. All right, first off, a little background on NewLeaf Symbiotics, and then I'll go into our TS601 mode of action work and some data that we have on how it works. NewLeaf Symbiotics is based in St. Louis, Missouri. We've been around for around 13 years now. We are a data-backed, science-driven company. So we are the technology provider for distributors such as YMS. We're relatively small. We have around 44 employees. Again, with it being science driven, we have over half of our employees with graduate degrees and at least 13 doctorate degrees. PPFMs are what I'm going to be talking about today. So pink pigmented facultative methylatrose, which is mouthful, which is why we say PPFMs. PPFMs are pink pigmented facultative methylatrose. This is a group of bacteria that have a natural symbiotic relationship with plants. They are found on every surface of the plant, whether it's the root or the leaves or the stem, and they are the most abundant taxa on the leaf surface. They have been found whenever we collect a plant, whether it's from our garden or from an agricultural field. Each plant that we have tested has PPFMs naturally present on them. It's just our job at NewLeaf to collect these various isolates and species from the environment and screen them and identify which ones are best suited for which mode of action. Do you want a biostimulant for soy? Does that particular isolate help with that? Do you want a biocontrol product against insects? Do you want one against fungi, which is what I'll be talking about today? PPFMs are very unique in the ag space in that they feed off of methanol. So that facultative methylatrose portion of the name is alluding to the fact that they grow off methanol, which is a natural waste product with a natural gas that is produced by the plant as it grows. So the plant does not need it. So it does not drain energy away from the plant like some microbes can if they are feeding off of root exudates. This also means that it does not compete with other bacteria. So many other bacteria feed off of those root exudates that I just mentioned, and it's a really tight competitive environment. Since our microbes feed off of that methanol, that's again naturally continuously released by the plant, they have their own carbon source and they're not competing against others. Kind of going back to the pink part, pink pigmented. So they are naturally pink. That's why you see all of our branding is pink everywhere. So these PPFMs produce a natural carotenoid, which makes them various shades of pink naturally, and that allows them to protect themselves against UV radiation, and they're also heavily desiccation tolerant. And then all of this leads to them being robust colonizers. So I alluded to the fact that we are testing lots of different isolates from different environments. So we have a collection of 12,000 isolates that we've tested over the past 13-ish years at NewLeaf, and we've identified that certain isolates have different modes of action. Like I mentioned before, we have biostimulants that help with nutrient uptake, emergence, stand establishment, ultimately yield, and these are the products that many of you may be familiar with already through YMS. We have nutrient utilization isolates that are specific to nitrogen uptake. And then today I'll be talking about our biocontrol pipeline, specifically our fungicide. Like Jake mentioned, our insecticide that was originally labeled for corn rootworm is already being sold through YMS, and it now has a broader label. And now I'm very pleased to introduce our TS601 EPA registered fungicide. Our products can be applied in many different ways. I believe most of our products are applied now as a dry powder application. This is a wettable powder that you apply in a planter box. And then we also have liquid seed treatment and our furrow capabilities. Today we'll be talking about TS601 as a liquid seed treatment. And just to kind of go back to how we are data driven, we test our products to see how well they are applied through different application methods in the field. We make sure whether it is a liquid seed treatment or a planter box application that it can go and be alive and living on the cells after application, so that it is effective with its mode of action. All right, going on to TS601, our fungicide. We are very excited about our new biofungicide because of its ISR-induced systemic resistance mode of action, because this provides a season-long protection, like Jake mentioned, against many different pathogens, whether they're soil-borne or foliar fungal pathogens. You apply it once and it's done. You apply it once and it colonizes that plant, it induces those defenses, and it helps protect the plant and allows the plant to use its own defenses against these diseases. And with it being season-long protection, this can also reduce the number of rescue sprays that's needed towards the end of the season. Now, ISR, I've mentioned this before, induced systemic resistance. What does that mean? So when you apply a PPFM, these beneficial microbes early on in the season, they induce this small but strong defense response in the plant. So this is a defense response that primes the plant, kind of like a vaccine, so that later on in the season, whether it's a pathogen or an insect, when it shows up, the plant is able to induce its own defenses earlier and stronger than it would have otherwise. And this is really what underlies the beneficial aspect of this fungus. It means that these defenses that the plants are inducing are broad. So it's not just against one class of microbe. It's not just against, water molds, oomycetes. It's not just against Sclerotinia or SDS. It's a broad application or broad efficacy with this mode of action. It also means that, again, we get this season-long effectiveness from this fungus. Once you apply it there early on, from this PPFM, once you apply it early on, you get that priming bump, and that lasts the entire season. And don't just take our word for it. We have had growers test our product on their farms since, I don't know, probably 2017 is when we started really getting more and more grower trials out. And we have turned many skeptics into true believers. This is with TS201, some examples where a grower tries it once, and then in the next year, they're going to be applying it onto every single one of their acres. And then the most recent kind of addition to this group is Kevin Kalb, who tested TS601 on his farm. So again, a skeptic early on, but after he tested TS601, he'll be applying it to all of his acreage next year. Early on in testing TS601, we were trying to figure out, where does it work best? Does it work best against Pythium? Does it work best against Sclerotinia? And we were really encouraged and surprised to see how broadly effective this PPFM is. So across crops, whether it's cotton, soybean, peanuts, as well as many others we've tested on, we have seen effectiveness against every disease so far that we have looked at. Now, it is not a standalone. We're not trying to say this is the only fungicide that you need on your crop next season, but it is a great tool in the toolbox. I'll show some data later on that shows when you apply this ISR mode of action microbe, in addition to kind of direct mode of action chemistries, you see a boost performance of those chemistries. All right, diving into a few examples from some soy disease trials. The first example is against Pythium on soybean. These were inoculated small plot trials where we were really trying to hit them hard to see if we can protect against this very common disease in soy. And in this instance, we actually saw comparable performance to, this is a metalaxyl chemical control. Metalaxyl is generally a very effective chemistry. There's some resistance popping up here and there, but it does only last for a small portion of the season. And then again, when you combine this chemistry, this direct mode of action with TS601, you see even greater performance. So tested TS601 against white mold in soy, like Jake mentioned. We have tested it across the season. We've tested it looking at incidence. So yes or no, does this plant have disease, as well as in terms of severity or how much of the plant has disease. And in these instances, we've seen that TS601 has been able to reduce severity by 55%. And again, that's us testing it as a standalone. We see that 55% reduction. We've also tested against SDS on soy. These are small plot trials that were ran this past season, and we saw a reduction in disease severity at 4 out of 5 locations. So this is, as everyone knows, is a difficult disease. It's difficult to test on in that it can be very spotty. And so the fact that we saw a disease reduction in 4 out of 5 locations was really astounding for us. And that's whether it has kind of more natural pressure, where you see some disease in the uninoculated control, or if it's really getting hit hard by that inoculation pressure. We see performance across the board. This is another set of experiments that we ran. So I kind of squeezed this in there. This is actually on peanuts. And the reason why I really love to show these slides is showing how stacking PPFMs, whether that's our biostimulants with our chemistries or combining them with, biostimulants with our fungicide or combining them with our chemistry, we see greater and greater performance. So just kind of walk you through what you're looking at here. On the y-axis, that's disease, so area under the disease progress curve. So it's the amount of disease that you see throughout the experiment, kind of combined and condensed down into one number. So higher is more disease pressure. So the first bar is kind of the baseline amount of disease you have in the system. That's that first bar, and that red bar is the inoculated plants, the ones that are really getting blasted by that disease pressure. Now, when you, the next bar is 601 applied by itself. So again, you're seeing that 40 to 50% reduction in disease just with 601 alone. But then when you combine it with our biostimulant, that's that light green bar, you see even greater efficacy. And at that point, it is comparable to the chemical controls in these experiments, which is the blue bar. So that's either azoxystrobin for rhizoctonia and white mold, or metalaxyl for Pythium. And then when you continue to stack, when you add our chemistry or a chemistry with TS601, and then furthermore with our biostimulant, you continue to see greater and greater efficacy, showing that this product is a great part of an IPM strategy for any grower. And then we, through YMS, as well as through Farm Journal, we've been able to, this past season, test TS601 in many different growers' fields, as Jake mentioned. And we've also been videoing a lot of these trials, getting the growers' perspective on the product. This is part of our Pink Performance Tour video series that you can see on NewLeaf's website, as well as all of our social media. So these videos, we have several videos released for this particular trial at Twin Bee Farms in Wisconsin, and we've been able to see performance in both treatments where they had a single foliar fungicide pass, as well as no fungicide pass, to see how much disease presence was found in this field. And so we saw less disease, less white mold in every comparison in that particular field. Another example of a trial where we were able to test 601 in the growers' fields. Again, another pink performance tour location. This is Brongart Ag in Missouri, and they tested against the GSP, or grower standard practice, and then combined our biostimulant with TS601 biofungicide, and even compared to the standard F&I, we were able to see greater rooting early in the season, greater stand establishment, and kind of faster development with those soy plants. And those particularly important in these trials that they were doing, because they're trying to push planting as early as possible to see how early they can plant soy in Missouri. So these were planted in April. So there was cold and wet, like it was across much of the Midwest. And even through that cold and wet, we were able to see that boost in growth development and rooting. And I think the final example that I have on soy for on-farm trials, again, this is just a few of the on-farm trials that we had through YMS. This grower had a heavy infestation with white mold. And we walked a transect of this field to test, whether it's TS601 section or the grower standard practice section. And this is my boss, Allison Jack, was walking through the field. And for the grower standard practice section, there was 46 plants that were infected with white mold, so very heavy pressure. And where TS601 was present, that was a reduction down to 2 plants that are identified. Now, like Jake mentioned, results can vary depending on how high a disease pressure you have in your field and what other yield limiting problems you have in that location. But this is really fantastic results where we saw this reduction in white mold in this field. All right, and then I just have one more kind of section to talk about on cotton. So cotton is impacted by many different soil-borne pathogens early in the season. Everything wants to attack it, whether it's Rhizoctonia, Fusarium, Pythium, you name it. And so we've been able to test against Rhizoctonia in both small plot and on-farm trials this season. Just kind of show you the disease progression here from a healthy cotyledon down to a cotyledon that has some discoloration, and then it can lead to full collapse and damping off in these fields. And Rhizoctonia is not only an issue on cotton, it's an issue on soy and peanuts and potatoes. Is a broad issue, soil-borne pathogen. And this is kind of showing our small plot data this season, where we're testing TS601 head-to-head against a chemical control, which was, let's see, Proline. And we actually saw greater performance than Proline in this particular set of trials when we are comparing to TS601 combined with our biostimulant. So this is protecting the disease. I mean, it is ramping up as the season goes on, as it often does. But with TS601, it kind of cuts that down. It delays that incidence, that onset of disease, and ultimately kind of reduces that disease pressure throughout the season. This is just our small plot trial. We also had an on-farm trial where we saw a similar reduction in disease against Rhizoctonia. So we're starting to see evidence of performance of TS601 in greenhouse trials and small plot trials and on-farm trials, and having a product that has consistent performance in all of those environments kind of shows how that induced systemic resistance mode of action can lead to strong, durable reduction in disease. And again, shout out to the Pink Performance Tour video series. You can check that out on our website. I think I had one more slide. Shout out to Amber and Chris and the rest of the YMS crew that were with us on the crop tour this season, where we were able to get out in growers' fields and again show how TS601 performs on farm.
Well, with that, I just want to thank you for your time today, Anne. This has been a pleasure, and thank you everyone for joining us. We're so thankful to have NewLeaf Symbiotics as a great partner to YieldMaster Solutions, and very much appreciate your time today, Anne.
Thank you so much, Amber. Thank you all. Have a great day.
Take care, everyone.
Bye.